Historically, it's always been the slower you work, the more money you make. AI comes along, everything has been turned on its head. I just don't see a whole lot of firms surviving.
The answer of we've always done it this way is not good enough anymore.
The profession's got 3 to 5 years to get its act together. And then after that, I don't know what happens. All right. Your law firm's biggest threat is likely not the one across town. This may be the business model that you've relied on for decades. Today, we welcome Samer Bandek to the podcast. Samer's the founder of Best Interest Family Law in Colorado, and his work includes high-stake litigation, collaborative law, and teaching attorneys about the future of family law. We're going to discuss traditional law firms and how they're being disrupted, and what the smallest firms are seeing before others, and why standing still may be the biggest risk to your business of all the risks. Welcome to the show, Samer. I appreciate your time today. I've been looking forward to talking to you about this topic for a while. It is important to our profession, and so welcome.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I'm honored to be your first guest.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about Best Interest Family Law.
Yeah, so I started it about a year and a half ago, and I kind of went through the traditional journey as an associate attorney and then figured I'd hang my own shingle and wanted to give it a go. And we were fully remote. It's, with the normal apprehension when our nerves when you start a business. And thankfully, it's gone very well over the past 18 months. We've scaled up rapidly, of course, relatively rapidly. And we've got 5 team members now, and the future is looking bright. And we continue to serve as many Colorado families going through family law matters.
What have been your biggest challenges during the last 18 months?
You don't know what you don't know. And so it's this new universe and trying to drink water from a fire hose when it comes to technology, um, staffing, and the business side. And so early on, I realized that while, of course, to attorneys, the law firm is the practice of law. I very quickly learned that this is a business and we're not special or unique from a business perspective. And so I just immersed myself in all the business, basically everything I can get my hands on, because the challenge early on was running a business.
That's kind of one of the distinctions. The things that's changed over my practice is, it used to be we consider ourselves strictly a profession. Like, there were really only 3 professions in the history, for a period of history, which was doctors, lawyers, and priests. Those were the professions. And so law always viewed itself separately. But recently, I think within the last 20 years, has begun to see itself as a business. How do you view that conflict between the traditional view of law as a profession and the modern view of legal services as a business?
Yeah, I think it's tough because even though I think the most important view is from the business side, I think it's important not to lose the honor or prestige aspect of the profession. And so it's, yes, I view it through the lens of a business. Well, I also want to balance I think the honor that I view as the profession.
Yeah, it seems that there's really 2 ways of coming at this: how we view ourselves and the services we provide to people. But then there's also a change in the consumer, right? Over the last 20 years, what their expectations are of service, period. Um, one of that to me has been a significant change. And I see it in myself, right? Because I use technology for banking and shopping and groceries and, you name it, right? Um, and you get used to Uber and Waymo and things like that. You get used to those new ways of interacting, new ways of living, and then you come up against a law firm that still wants to send you a fax, right? Um, how do you view the customer expectations, the client expectations, and the mismatch with any legal services that you see out there in the market?
I think the consumer, whether consciously or subconsciously, is expecting a more seamless experience. Like, to your point of all the luxuries we have in our day-to-day life that we don't even think about anymore, we just expect them. I think the consumer is carrying that expectation, and it's a newer trend that they're carrying that over into their legal experiences. And so I think that's what's causing the disruption in the market, where we now have more savvy, smart consumers that expect the convenience factor that they go through, that they enjoy on a day-to-day basis to carry over to their legal experience. And that's where I view my responsibility as a law firm owner, is to deliver on that convenience and to integrate technology to make it a more seamless experience.
Sometimes I feel like I'm not competing with Robinson and Henry, great firm, but I don't feel like I'm competing with them. I feel like I'm competing with Uber or competing with, DoorDash or something, because the user's expectation is, well, why aren't you doing this too? Um, do you see clients coming in and just being kind of like, well, what's going on here? Why not? Why aren't you doing it this way or that way? Or how come you're billing me for this when you could be doing it a different way?
One of my effort, I make a concerted effort to get ahead of that. So it's more of the client thinking, hey, this is cool, or this is a positive experience, instead of getting the friction on the back end. And so, I mean, from the first time a potential client contacts our firm, we're trying to make it as frictionless as possible. So they're just booking their consult, getting a Zoom link, automated emails, all the way to our billing practices being transparent, and online payments. I interact with different vendors and experts, and they'll say, mail a check. And I just, I just like, I cringe. I'm like, Do you want to get paid as soon as possible?" So I would say the answer to that question is, I'm trying to be as proactive as possible to integrate myself into seamless technology, so that I don't get that pushback from the client of, why am I being billed for this? Or why do I need 4 calls to get the initiating paperwork information? Shouldn't you be requesting that in a digital format? Don't you know that you will need that? So, and thankfully, we haven't got a lot of pushback. There's not a lot of friction, because that's one of my main priorities, is to make the consumer experience as easy as possible.
I mean, that's hard, because the more you streamline the consumer experience, the less you bill, right? And so it becomes less profitable. How do you view those sorts of efficiencies? Do you want them or do you avoid them?
I lean into it, and I think the regulatory agencies are probably lagging behind, whether you say months or years, on monetizing that efficiency. But I look at that as a secondary issue, because I'm not fighting that fight now. The fight I'm currently fighting is, how do I deal with the efficiencies that I'm creating? And so I think that's the direct answer is, I'm okay with it. In a vacuum, and I think this is what makes my firm, your firm, and other like firms that have this philosophy special or different. In a vacuum, for each client, I want to deliver the best, most efficient legal service I can, as an attorney, as a law firm owner, and that reverberates through the team. And so, if we automate the intake process or automate the filing process, and the client gets savings, and I bill 20%, 50% less, I'm okay with that. There's some downstream positives. So it's not this altruistic. It is altruistic, but it's not solely altruistic, because I can serve more clients, and I can have a happier client. And then they're referring their family member or friend. So I look at it, even if I didn't get that impact, the way I go to bed at night is, because, of course, legal fees are insanely expensive. And the way I look at it is, if I can bring that down, I have an ethical obligation to bring those costs down, regardless of what it does for my business. And it just so happens that doing that is very good for business, even though, despite the regulatory kind of hurdles. How have you seen the tug of war between, I'm now offering more efficient legal services, versus, wait, I want to make money and operate a business profitably?
For me, efficiency is a net positive, on the altruistic side and on the business side, because the business, you're right, you generate more revenue by being more efficient. The kicker is, of course, the regulators, like you said, they uh, their rules are designed to make us spend more time, not less time. And so, for me, I mean that's my battle, right?
If you go to any business owner and you say, hey, this task is going to take 10 hours, and you can now do it in 5 hours. And by the way, you can't reap the reward of those 5 hours you saved. It's disincentivizing anyone other than us, the the odd ones out, of saying, hey, regardless of that framework, let's find a way to make this the right thing to do, or a positive thing. So it just seems it just seems like the rules are lagging behind and creating a disincentive.
What's your plan to deal with that?
uh, it's I think the size of my firm, the easy answer is the cop out answer, which I will let people like you on the cutting edge blaze that path for us, because I don't delude myself into thinking I have some sort of massive impact or following. I try to, back to in a vacuum, I try to do right by each client, and that has a ripple effect of, a net positive for communities and for my employees and all of that. But I don't I don't think in this current landscape that I have the ability to have that much of an impact.
Think that the lawyers have to realize that it's the rules themselves that are holding us back in some regard. That's my philosophy anyway, because Rule 1.5 says, you have to have reasonable fees. And then it defines one of the ways it defines reasonable fees is how much time did you spend on it? My experience in court, I don't know if it's yours too, has been anytime you're standing there talking about fees in front of a judge, the only thing they care about is how much time you spend. Not the other list of criteria that Rule 1.5 has. The only one they go for is how much time did you spend on it, because it's the easiest one. It's the quickest one. They can make a decision, right? And judges don't want to spend a whole lot of time diving into the benefit to the client and all the other criteria. And so uh, I feel like, and this, you're right. I argue with people. It's kind of part of my job at this point about rule changes to allow for efficiency and innovation. I mean, the billable hours historically, it's always been the slower you work, the more money you make, and AI comes along. And now it's like everything has been turned on its head. And talking about client expectations, right? Um, their I saw a chart, I think it was this weekend on New York Times or Washington Post or something like that, that showed how much of the world's population is using AI. That was like 20%. These are our clients, right? Are you guys using it? Or
I think we're just scratching the surface. We're using some kind of closed off, models, because I'm always, and again, going back to the regulatory agent, it's a gray area, and so we're all, as a small firm, we're cautious, and so we're kind of dipping our toes in, trying to use as much as we can without going awry of the rules. But yes, we're using it. I found I am not comfortable, and I think the focus, and we've talked about this in the past, Dave, of the everyone hyper fixates on the drafting and then the hallucinations. I feel like it's like the cliche water cooler talk of like, oh my gosh, you see what AI is doing, and you've actually brought this up before. It's the attorneys doing it. It's their attorney's responsibility. It's not like deflecting blame to, oh, it's the AI. No, it's the attorney misusing the AI. And so we're trying to how we use it is more of going through massive amounts of discovery, massive amounts of documentation, and breaking things into bite-sized chunks. But we've got redundancies in place, and we're still, I would say, nervous to take that leap of faith of fully committing to it, but while understanding this is the future and not wanting to be left out in the cold. So we're just scratching the surface, and we're trying to save as much time as possible for both from a business perspective and to pass on the savings to the client.
it's an incredible tool, but there are these pitfalls out there, right? That first of all, they scare us to death with, oh my God, you're going to use AI, you're going to get this bar. Yeah, I mean that is the perception out there, and so they managed to scare a lot of people away from even trying it, even using it for personal things or operational things, which is my big push is operations. I feel for people lawyers in smaller firms, because to get an enterprise license, which is what everybody says you got to have, right, to be secure, it's 20 grand, right? And for a bigger firm, that's not pleasant, but it's doable. For a smaller firm, that threshold is too high. I mean, how are you gonna do that? And then how much are you gonna use it? We have a team of tech people, and I was meeting with them the other day, and one of them said, "Oh, I worked on this side project to automate the intake, as the intake person is taking notes of their conversation, name, last name, email, phone number, collecting all that information, inputting into the system. It used to be that when we would pass the call, we had to copy and paste that into a chat, right? And then everybody Now, this guy on the intake or this guy on the tech team used AI to create that summary automatically and post it automatically into the group. Tons of saved time just from this guy being curious whether he could do this with AI or not.
I've seen that even I mean, I know that's an example. I've got another one that just came across and we're beginning to integrate into our firm is from a billing perspective. There's some softwares out there that use AI. They looked at and it's all super secure and I've done my research on that. I think that's the kind of everyone has the trigger warning of, oh my gosh, secure. It's like, okay, as a disclaimer, everything is super secure and health grade data encryption, all the good stuff. But as far as how it helps, it's reviewed all the firm's historical billing entries and use that to build an AI model for how I want to use my billing entries. Screen records my time, not records, it tracks my screen and combines those two things to tell me what I just did on the billing entry. And so it's things like that. And this is just brand new technology that we're dying to get our hands on and we're getting integrated with. And it's just the list goes on and on and on. And so that's why I get so disheartened when I talk to other firm owners and they don't see this as the future because to me it's so obvious. How could that not be the future? Whether it's the intake example, the billing, and as AI gets better for more drafting purposes and data and discovery review, I know it is the future. And I'm rarely 100% confident on anything, and I just know this is the future. And so, why not lean in now before it's too late?
I've struggled with this question over the last couple of years. I've come to the conclusion I don't think it can. Um, but what do you think? Do you think that lawyers as a profession can change the course and begin to adopt these things?
Yeah, I think that's the big question. I'm reluctant to say yes, and I think it's going to be, and this is just my honest opinion, and it's not to ruffle any feathers, but I think it's going to be a changing of the guards generationally. If you talk to some older attorneys that have been practicing 20, 30, 40 years, the answer, whether they say it directly or not, the answer is because we've done it this way. And I think we're seeing a generational shift of this new wave of attorneys and consumers as well of say, well, why? And that the answer of we've always done it this way is not good enough anymore. And so, do I think they change overnight? Do I think that the changing of the guards is going to happen quickly? No, but I think as we get new attorneys entering the practice and more demanding, savvy consumers, I think eventually we'll get there because it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. Do you utilize AI into like technology, AI being the forefront of the conversation, or do you not? And I think you're starting the gap is, I think, small right now. I think the gap is going to continue to widen to the point where you're going to become extinct or you'll utilize it. And so I think by the zero sum nature of the paradigm I think that is going to happen, there will be an adoption of it in kind of a roundabout way. So I know that's a convoluted answer, but I think no upfront, but ultimately you will have to. And whether that timeline's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm not that plugged in to know the model, but I think ultimately it's going to be have and have not.
I call it, punctuated equilibrium, which is a theory in evolution of everybody thinks evolution is like a nice steady increase, little changes here, little changes. But actually what they've shown happens is it's progressing and then something exterior will happen that shoots change through the roof. And, there's a lot of extinction that happens when at punctuated equilibrium because the species just doesn't keep up. And I feel like we're in that stage that you're right. Is it 3 years? Is it 5 years? I just don't see a whole lot of firms surviving because some firms, like yours and mine, see the value of AI, see the value of efficiency, see the consumers change, right? Their expectations have changed. You cannot be that guy who says we've always done it this way because the client says, Not me." And they want to find somebody who does it like them.
I think so many businesses get entrenched in how from their perspective out, and I think that's a huge mistake because it seems obvious that we're serving a consumer, a customer, whatever, a client in our case, and I don't think enough business owners put themselves in the consumer's shoe. I do that on a weekly and definitely on a monthly basis of like, Okay, I'm interacting with firms. What happens when I Google a firm? What happens when I take a consult with another firm? What are other firms' websites? And so by putting myself in the consumer's shoes, I can literally think about these questions they're faced with. Okay, they don't even have a website. Okay, they're not tech friendly, or you call them up, no one answers, or and so by viewing it from the customer focused or client facing lens, to me, that's what makes it inevitable that AI will be adopted because again, putting myself in the shoes, say, do I want the do I want my divorce to cost $5,000 or $20,000? And yes, that's oversimplification, but I think it's going to be that extreme. And we don't know, let's say 5 years. I think when we talk about the fork in the road, I think it's going to be that extreme. And so again, back to my conclusion that it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, because it's going to be that drastic of a difference in the value and the price of what the consumer pays.
Your expectation, you're younger than me, right? Your expectations, your way of life is way different than where I was at your age, right? And so that group of people is now becoming the group of people who need our services, the younger crew, right? And when they see like they don't have a web page, they don't answer their phone, they get voicemail, they don't resonate to that. This is not somebody that they're going to trust or get along with. And that trust is, as you know, is hyper critical when you're dealing with a divorce, right? They got to trust you. They got to resonate with you. And if you're not living in their world, it's just not going to happen. So yeah, I feel like they're looking for these efficiencies. But if you build these efficiencies and you get rid of the document processing, right? That we all have to do in the filing and my email goes there and et cetera. What's left for lawyers? What's our job in that hyper efficient divorce case?
I think the fear is that, well, I'm working myself out of a job. And I don't think that's going to happen because there's always going to need to be an orchestrator because the tools need, in my opinion, maybe 20 years, 50, who knows? But I think for the short term and medium term, there's always going to have to be a ringleader. So I think we're going to be measured, our skills, going back to the profession concept. It was, the old fashioned model is that, how good of an attorney are you is how good are your legal services. And I think that's going to shift, or at least it's going to be two prongs. One, yes, that might exist but it might fade away also. But the second prong is how well can I manage the tools that deliver legal services? I think that's where the shift is. And so if people really bought into that, they would understand that they can get really good at something that's not going away. No matter how good AI gets, I don't think attorneys are going away because of their ability to manage these tools. And then the second part of that is judgment. This may be an old or an antiquated take. I value my judgment so much that there's critical inflection points in a case. I do not care how good the AI gets. I've I just have to live and breathe that decision with my client. And so those two things combined, I have ultimate job security. I don't care how good the AI gets. I need to be there for a couple key moments and I need to supervise all the tools. So because of those things, I have zero concerns about my job security.
So this whole idea that AI somehow you start laying people off, that's a bunch of baloney in my mind, because lawyers, you know, AI has never been through a breakup, has never been cheated on, has never had the somebody pick up and take the kids in the middle of the night. No, these are human interactions that we understand deeply. Most of us having gone through some of those, not all of those, right? And we get it, we understand it, but AI will not. How can it help that person who's going through that, who's sitting there like, I'm so scared. Do I change my locks? Do I, these sorts of things that only humans can really appreciate, resonate to, and provide experiential answers. So I don't fear for our jobs. And it's the emotional intelligence that lawyers can offer to our clients that a computer cannot. And so I view us as finally getting to the stage of being able to offer valuable service to a client instead of being a very expensive paper pusher.
If it were truly a transaction, then sure, AI could replace us entirely. They could check that box maybe at a better rate or at a better level of satisfaction than I could check the box down the road. but they can never check that emotional box. And the reason is because it's not a box to be checked. It's how can the client feel validated and heard and connect with another human? And so that's why I know that we will always need to be there with our experience to connect the emotional dots.
I see us changing as a profession, in the type of service that we provide and interaction with the client, and then of course the economic model's got to change because we're not reaching into the 75% of people who can't afford the current, cost of the divorce. But yeah, I feel like the job of lawyers is going to be very different in the next 3 to 5 years because the menial tasks, the emails, the filing, the collecting all the financial information you need for a sworn financial statement and financial disclosures in other jurisdictions, all of that kind of goes away, right? And one time we did a survey of how much each stage of the litigation cost the client on average, and far and away the biggest chunk was the financial affidavit. Um, you got cases that you spend 2 weeks in trial or whatever, so they're the outliers. But on average, it was collecting the documents, calling up clients and saying, "How much do you pay for your trash bill? What was your water bill in June of 2025?" Those sorts of stupid data collection points that you have to have, right?
I think the introspection that firm owners are afraid to do is the question we should be asking is what is the best way to deliver legal services to our clients? What is the most efficient way? And we get back to well, we've always done financials this way. I always meet with my clients and they hand me a stack of papers and it's just there's so much technology that can make it a better experience. And so I think keeping that in the forefront makes it again, and I keep coming back to this, it's not to beat a dead horse, but it just seems so obvious to us that yeah, if we can automate the disclosure process, why wouldn't we? If I can do this for 20%, 50% of the cost, arguably I have an obligation to my client. Because think how guilty you feel if you know you could do better and you're sitting there doing paper handoffs and asking them about their trash bill. I That feels miserable to me. I don't want their money in that context. I'd rather them save their money and have a higher quality of life or do whatever they want with their own money. And if they need to pay us for trials, so be it. But the tasks that can be automated should be automated.
Yeah, I think you have a happier client and a better business, right? I mean, like you said, people will talk and they'll be like, "Yeah, how much did your divorce cost? 25,000. Well, mine was only 5,000." Right? I mean, word will get out. Word will get out much quicker than I think, most people realize that reputation is spreads like wildfire. Looking down the road, whether it's 3 years or whatever, what are you most worried about as a lawyer for our profession? What worries you the most about where we're heading?
To answer the question directly, I think the biggest concern to our biggest risk to the profession is staying stuck where we are instead of looking to the future.
What are you most excited about for the legal profession?
I think the most thing that I'm excited about is that percentage growing, whether that's you and me, on this podcast or talking to my attorney, law firm owner friends saying, "Hey, like this is real, it's not going away," and taking that 20% to 50% and 60. That's like kind of spreading the gospel, so to speak, of like, hey, AI is real, AI is here to stay. To me, that's what gets me fired up because the feeling of and how you started the segment is spot on. Of it's not the firm across town, it's how can we all collectively serve clients better. And so the more people that we can convince that AI and technology are the future, the more clients are served and more families are happy, less high conflict divorces. So that's what really gets me fired up is how can we bring our industry above ground and join the technology wave?
My gosh, there's so much blue sky there, right? There's so much we can do because we're so far behind. And it is exciting to me because it's not that hard.
Yes, it's true. And it's kind of the snowball effect. Once you start, small snowball rolling down a hill and it starts picking up the snow, like things can get really, really amazing really quickly. Oh, okay, hey, we did this small thing with intake, we did this thing with financials. Before you know it, and to your point, it's not that hard. that's why I get fired up about I kind of look at it like a light switch moment of just convincing people, because once the switch is on and the snowball starts going downhill, people are shocked. And I fully believe in AI technology, and I've seen it on a small scale with my firm of just, oh wow, we're so much more efficient on intake. We're so much more efficient on this. And you can just, the snowball gets bigger and bigger. And so it doesn't, to your point, it's not hard. It just takes the awareness and then the commitment, and then you're good. And it's like, it's ironic that you can use AI to inform like what you should be doing next, like having those conversations with AI, say, hey, what my firm is doing this, this, and this. What should I do? What's the most important thing? And then before you know it, your whole firm is running like a well-oiled machine. And so, yeah, I think we have all the tools. We just have to decide to use them.
I don't know if it's self-interest. They want to keep all the firms away from AI, or they want to keep firms away from innovation. Because they make more money with no change on the horizon. But that is an unsustainable philosophy, right? I mean, change is coming whether you like it or not, and yet they just fight it all the time. Have you heard about this? These firms that are twinning or cloning lawyers?
I've seen it in the headlines. I'm not a subject matter expert, but I think it's fascinating from I'll let you give us some context, but I'm aware it exists. It seems very expensive and miles above my pay grade, but I am aware of the concept.
The ones that I've seen or been involved with, Norm Law is probably the most amazing one that I've seen, which is a company that hires some of the best lawyers in the world in various areas of practice, like commercial and real estate, mostly transactional M&A type of lawyers. And it's not so that those lawyers go out and generate clients and come back and serve the clients and have associates and things like that. It's so that they can get that lawyer into a room with the AI agent to have an interview that lasts for months, right? They capture the experience, the knowledge, the motivation, the talent. They try and capture as much about that lawyer's experience into a knowledge base that they tie the LLM to. And then that agent goes out and services the clients, or at least provides the associate level support for someone else to provide those services. And Norm Law is not the only one doing it, right? Eudora, Lagora, Udia and Lagora, and one more that I can't remember. But oh, and then there's a professor up in Canada who's doing it as a project, which I think is unbelievably fascinating. I think that scares. They're kind of doing it in the background, but I think that scares a lot of lawyers when they first hear about it, because it's like we're going to be replaced. They're going to, but it
Yeah.
goes back to the same thing, which is the emotional intelligence of lawyers is necessary to handle any client. I think you and I are in the right business. I can't imagine norm law coming into family law. Maybe they could, but how are they going to do that? How are they going to deal with the
Yeah.
the domestic violence, the restraining orders, the you know parenting plan? Oh my
Yeah.
God,
But to answer the question, yeah, I think it's like a protectionist mentality. And so there's cool things, scary things happening. Let's grip tighter and hope that it doesn't come our way. And I think that's such a naive way of thinking. Whereas my thought process is to, hey, the way I look when I read those headlines and I'm catching up and reading at night, and it's like, well, there's proof of concept. If someone is spending $500 million on a model, I'm a tiny fish in a tiny pond. I need to take note of that, right? Like they wouldn't, like I need to put some stock in someone or a board somewhere has made a decision that this is worthy of our $500 million. Well, shouldn't it be worth me reading about it or thinking about it or talking about it? And so I it's to me inevitable, and the protectionist thinking I think comes from I think it's a psychological phenomenon of scary things are happening. There's a tidal wave coming. Let's actually the way I like to think of it is the debt collection model, and this is a random example, but when a debt collector comes after someone and they owe them money, and then I talk to clients, I talk to people like, oh, I owe 20 grand, or it's in collections or whatever. They never. they knew that they owed money, but they buried their head in the sand and just hoped or prayed that a hero would come and save them or someone would pay this off. And it's uncomfortable to think about, hey, I owe 20 grand and this is not going away. We don't, as humans, we don't want to do that difficult thinking or wrestling with those concepts. So what do? Bury their head in the sand. Interest is added on, attorneys are after, and they're garnishing wages and all these things. I look at it like that. It's so much easier in the short term to think, oh no, that tidal wave is going to miss my town. No, it's just a fad. Don't worry about it. People want that reassurance. People want to feel good, right? That's where I get to the psychology. Whereas I'm begging people, wake up. The tidal wave is coming to your town. Do not bury your head in the sand. The debt is not going away. And I think that's the conflict here is do these practitioners maybe deep down they know it's coming, but they don't want to wrestle with the concept of change.
That's the biggest hurdle that everybody has to get over is just the fear of change, the fear of starting, right? You just got to start. The only way through or only way out is through. And they gotta try it not be afraid of use it for operational stuff. I don't understand why people won't, okay, so you got to worry about client information, you got to protect that, but why not use it for operational stuff? You know?
And this is more of not just an AI point, a business point is that I would rather be wrong 100 times than sit and do nothing. And I think that's what makes us successful as business owners is that every time I'm wrong about something or I fail, that gives me critical information. Okay, I tried option one, it didn't work. Let's regroup and try option two. I'm willing to do that for infinity. I'm okay with that. Because if things don't work out or whatever the industry and I'm wrong about the industry trends, I can go to bed at night knowing, hey, I tried. I used all the information I had in front of me and I made an educated decision. I was wrong, but I tried. The inverse of that is sitting around doing nothing. I can't live with myself because you did nothing. That's the easy way out. And so I think the shift needs to happen. People need to be more aggressive with their risk tolerance and say, hey, what's the price of not doing this? As opposed to just ringing the alarm bell of, I'm saying, hey, do option one. Oh, what are the problems with option one? Sure, there's problems for everything. There's risks when you go across the street. There's risks for everything. So I think we need to dial up people's risk tolerance into accepting this because it's not a fad.
Here's me talking about stories again, but I remember when email was a risky thing. The same thing. They're gonna disbar us for sending out emails. You can't send out an email. People can intercept it. Same thing with cell phone calls. Everybody thought that there was somebody listening in on cell phone calls, but it's easy enough. If there are people listening that haven't tried AI, it's easy enough to try it. It's a simple little chat window. Just ask it a question, have a conversation with it, talk about the news, talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, and then just get used to it, because if you don't try it, if you don't start, then yeah, you're going to get swept up by that tidal wave. I agree with you. Any last thoughts about the legal profession and where we're heading and the problems we're coming up against?
Go get into a model and start talking, and start messaging things. I think that's important. I go to so many conferences where I'm like, wow, this is so theoretical. I'm like, what do I do now? And so I think just Googling it and starting, pick any one of the big providers and just start asking questions.
Huh.
Even if you're too nervous about the client side, do the operational side. And then Google, just immerse yourself, and so that we can't force anyone to do anything, but at least just know what's out there and say, hey, just in our quick conversation, we've talked about the billing models, the intake models, the
Hmm.
financial models. Sure, maybe that's an intermediate step, fine, but just do something. So I think the action, if anyone takes anything away, is just start somewhere. Google something, just read some articles and start because to our point, it's really not going away. Might as well get ahead of it.
Up at like 5 o'clock and read the news, and there's always something in there about tech and how fast it's moving, and you don't have to do that to stay relevant, to protect your practice, to serve your clients better, but you do have to engage, and understand it, and not be afraid of it, because I think what you and I have agreed on is that the profession's got 3 to 5 years to get its act together, and then after that, I don't know what happens.
Why not do as much as we can now to prepare ourselves for what we think is coming. It's there's no or minimal downside to at least getting educated, at least informing yourself of what the tools are.
Samer, it's great always to talk to you, and look forward to talking to you more.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate your time.
All right, thanks.